All right, I will say good morning. Good morning. Let us begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning's daf. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsors, for the month of Menachem Av, the Tilson and Wall families from Eretz Yisrael, sending their love from Eretz Yisrael and inviting us in Eretz Hashem to come and join them b'Sha'at Tova u'Mitzlachas. Our Day of Learning sponsors, Rabbi Aryeh and Chana Richter, as a schus and the Fuhr Shalema for Rabbi Richter's father, Shimon Meshulam Ben Sarah, who's having surgery today. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, he will have a complete and enduring refuah. Our Daf Yomi sponsors for today, Gabi and Shana Cohn, in creation of Gabi's grandmother, Clara Axman Chaya Bas Chaim Lev Halevi Zichron Levrach, on the occasion of our yard site. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the Neshama Slav and Aliyah, the families in Nechama, all of those who need a refuah, should have one together with Kol Choli Yisrael. The Kodesh Baruch Hu should Eretz Hashem bring home our hostages b'shalom and b'karim, and should allow our soldiers to be successful b'chol ma'aseh yadehem. But so with that, let us begin. So we are picking up a lot of exciting Gemara ahead of us today. A lot to do today. Today's daf is Nun Ches 58, but we are picking up Eretz Hashem on Nun Zayin Amud Beis 57b, and we left off 2, 4, 6, 7 lines up from the bottom. So remember again, we're dealing over here with the interesting exchange. Rabbi Yochanan had asked Rabbi Benah, and it said she was asking Rabbi Benah. It began with a conversation of what does the clothing of a Talmud Chacham look like, right? And then it went on to what does the table of a Talmud Chacham look like. So continuing in that conversation, v'taba samichutz. Now I will say the ring of the table, Rabbi Benah goes on, explains should be positioned on the outside. I will say, so once again, in order to appreciate these Gemaras, we have to understand that don't think of a table like we have it, right? But rather again, their table was much more like almost like what you would consider like a tray table. Like a tray table. In other words, it was a table for one. So what would happen when it was not being used? It's actually an interesting idea that Rashman points out. When it was not being used, you would hang it on the wall. You'd have like a screw or something, a peg. You'd hang it on the wall. So there was a ring. There was a ring at the end of the table, at the side of the table, so that you could lift it up. I guess maybe like it would fold, or the legs would come off, and you would just hang it on the wall. So where do you position that ring? So Rabbi Benah says, "V'tabasal mibachutz." You should put the ring on the outside. Now, what does on the outside mean? So remember again, when you're sitting at one of those Talmudic tables, you're sitting at the length of that table, right? You're sitting, that's why the width is across from you. You're sitting at the length of that table. So where should the ring be positioned? The ring be positioned b'chutz, on the further side from you. So not right next to you, but rather again on the further side from you. But we learned that the ring should be positioned on the inside. As well say, this is a good distinction, beautiful distinction. It depends. Are you eating with a child on your lap or not? If you're eating with a child on your lap, then having that ring right next to you is a dangerous proposition, right? Because what could happen? The kid yanks that ring, and that's it. And that's it. That's why the Brisa would say, put the ring on the outside. If, on the other hand, there is no child sitting on your lap, then fine, keep the ring on the inside. The other possibility is, maybe not to do with kids. V'lo kasha, and the Gemara says still it's not a question. V'lo kasha, ha'di'ika shama, ha'deleka shama. Do you have a servant or an attendant, right? A waiter. So again, if there's no waiter, you can keep the ring on the outside. If there is a waiter, you want the ring on the inside, right, so that the waiter doesn't brush against the ring and potentially knock down the table. We might say the other possibility is hava hadika shama. Both cases are talking about where there is a waiter. V'lo kash, it's not a contradiction. Ha b'yamama, ha b'leila. One is talking about night and one is talking about day. So remember again, by day, when you can go ahead and see the ring, right? The servant can see the ring. He's not going to bump into it. But by night, when he can't necessarily see the ring as well, remember it's not necessarily as illuminated. Therefore, again, you want to put the ring on the inside. Okay, so all of this, Rabbi Benah is describing over here the table of a Talmud Chacham. Vishal Ama Aretz, but the table of an Ama Aretz, the table again of someone who's just ignorant, Dome top of Nunches, Dome Lemedura, Ukidiros Makifos also. It's like a fire in the middle with pots surrounding it, all the way. So what does it mean? Look at the Rashbam, Lemedura, Shemukefes Keres Va'ish Ba'emtza, Afkan Hamapa Va'alechem Ba'emtza, Va'akaro Saviv. So the table of an Ama Aretz, if you can imagine, the Rebbe Bernard describes it, is you have the mappa, the napkin, and the bread in the middle, and pots surrounding it. So obviously, it's not a very helpful matzah, not a very helpful situation if the food is in the middle and there's pots surrounding it and I'm sitting at that table. What's the imagery? The imagery is a lack of sin. This goes back to what we said yesterday. What was Rabbi Bernard describing? What is the primary trait of a Talmid Chacham? It's not even what's the trait of a Talmid Chacham, it's what is the life trait that allows a person to become a Talmid Chacham? And the answer is Seder, order. And by the way, it's not just a Talmid Chacham. It's what is the life trait that allows for success. I'm just determining life traits, but what is one of the life traits that allows for success? Seder. When a person is organized, when a person has a plan, you're right. Every once in a while you read these stories about these brilliant individuals who forget to put their pants on in the morning and they come up with these ideas and this, that, and that's fantastic and that's beautiful. But people like that really only become successful if they are surrounded by people who remember to put on their pants. In other words, so Seder is the most important thing in the world. Because without Seder, without an order, in other words, a person wakes up in the morning, what am I accomplishing today? What am I doing? When am I doing it? How am I doing it? Of course, plans change, things come up, you have to pivot. But without Seder, you can't maximize your time. And without maximization of one's time, one cannot become a Talmid Chacham, or for that matter, accomplish everything that is possible to accomplish in life. Seder is the key to life success. So therefore, again, that's what Rabbi Bernard is saying. Talmid Chacham looks a certain way. Talmid Chacham's table is arranged a certain way. What's an Ama Aretz? Ama Aretz is his stuff is everywhere. His stuff is everywhere. You see this, by the way, when a person is not organized or orderly and their stuff is everywhere, everything just takes so much longer because you can't find what you need to accomplish the given task. You'll get to it, but everything is so much longer. It's incredible. So the Gemara goes weiter. What does the bed of a Talmid Chacham look like? Interesting Gemaras. So the bed of a Talmid Chacham has nothing under it except his winter shoes during the summer and his summer shoes during the winter. The idea being that under the bed is used for storage. So again, he doesn't have, here's incredible, he doesn't have clutter, right? So therefore, again, all he has under his bed are the shoes that he's not using, which is also mefurish raya, that one does not need multiple pairs of shoes, right? So there's a winter set of shoes, there's a summer set of shoes. This is a halacha for men. I'm not weighing in on women's shoe selections, right? But lamaisa again, incredible. But also it's all the same thing. Under the bed of the Talmid Chacham, there's not a clutter, right? There's not a whole bunch of stuff there, but rather, again, what's there? Whatever the pair of shoes that he's not using, that's what's under the bed. Nothing less, nothing more. Incredible. I'll say it also represents the idea of the shoes, right? Shoes always represent, the ability, versatility. So what makes a Talmid Chacham a Talmid Chacham? Perhaps also the idea of he always has the other season's shoes right under the bed, meaning that part of what a Talmid Chacham needs is the ability to pivot in life. That sometimes, the season doesn't go the way you wanted it to go. This is not like an Orioles comment over here, right? The season doesn't go the way you want it to go, right? Things don't happen the way you want them to unfold, right? So what do you do? So sometimes when life doesn't go the way you want it to go, people are often caught off guard. Don't be caught off guard. Have your shoes ready under your bed. So it's summertime, but now it begins to pour. Okay, make sure your winter shoes are right under your bed and you're ready to go, right? Or it's wintertime, so there's a heat wave, so make sure that your summer shoes are ready to go. This idea representing that Talmid Chacham needs seder, that's quality number one. You have to have order, a framework of organization to be able to maximize your time and your life, and the ability to pivot. The seasons don't always unfold as you thought they were going to. Make sure to always have the other season's shoes right under your bed, so if you need to pull them out, nothing could stop you from moving forward in life. Don't allow unexpected circumstances to derail you, but be prepared as best as you can for the unexpected. Have your seasonal shoes ready and be ready to move yourself forward. The Gemara goes weiter. V'shal am haaretz. So I will say, what does under the bed of an am haaretz look like? Doma la'otzar belus. Just looks like your garage, like it looks like otzar belus literally means like a storehouse. That's the place where you just like throw everything that you're not currently using. You think you're probably going to need it in the future, but you're not exactly sure, but you don't want to throw it away, so you just throw everything in there. So under the Sarosa, it's incredible, right? That again, once again, these things are all tied together. It's not the pshat that this is what an Amma Aretz does. It's the pshat that this is the trait that engenders amaratzus. This is the trait that engenders ignorance, a lack of seder, a lack of order, which leads to a lack of maximization of one's time and one's life. That leads to an Am Haaretz personality. Incredible. Rabbi Bina, we'll say incredible Gemara over here. Rabbi Bina, Havakamatzayin Ma'arta. Rabbi Bina took upon himself to mark graves. Now, the idea over here, this is for two reasons. Well, take a look at the Rashbam. Rabbi Bina, Adam Gadol v'chashav haya. He was a great man, and he was chashav. Lefichach nitan lo reshus likanis lekeri tzadikim. And therefore, we're going to see he was given the right, he was given the license to enter into the graves of righteous people. But the idea over here is that he took upon himself, this is a public service, to outline graves, so that people, remembering I will say, if you stumble upon a grave and you didn't know it was a grave, so Lamaisa again, there's a tumah problem. If you were holding kodshim, right, or if you were holding, like say, trumas and maestras, they become ritually impure. So he took upon himself to go ahead and outline graves. So we'll say, get ready for this. Kimatala ma'arta da Avram. He came to Marasa Machpelah, came to Chevron, and he came to the kever of Avram Avinu. Ashkechele Eliezer Eved Avram the Kai Kame Bava. He found Eliezer was standing at the entranceway to the cave. Eliezer, the servant of Avram Avinu. Eliezer was standing at the entranceway to the cave. Amarle, my Ka'avad Avram. So Rabbana says, what is Avram up to? What is Avram Avinu doing now? So I say, this is so beautiful. Amarle, first wide line, Nun Chesam Nalif, Gani Bekam Fa Desara, the Kaima Ainale Bereshe. He is in the embrace of Sarah Imenu, and she is looking at his head. So I say, so just to understand the image over here is that Sarah is like holding Avram, right? Like Avram's head is like against her chest, and she's looking down at his head. She's holding Avram Avinu in this loving embrace. Amrle, so we'll say, first of all, what is that? Right? What is that supposed to represent? So we'll say, I think just on a very pashat level, it represents the profound and overwhelming love that Avram and Sarah shared. And that love was a transcendent love. The relationship that all of the Avos and the Ma'os had, the matriarchs and patriarchs, were very different. Avram and Sarah had a very unique relationship in that there was almost like this symbiotic partnership. There wasn't an Avram without a Sarah, and there wasn't a Sarah without an Avram. They were truly, truly like one entity. In fact, it's fascinating. Rabbi Soloveitchik points out that after Sarah Imenu died, we don't find any dynamic activity from Avram Avinu. Right, Sarah dies, and after that, only thing we hear about now. But remember, before Sarah died, Avram Avinu is running all over the place. Right, he's doing everything. He's trying to change the world. Sarah dies, and literally the only thing we hear about Avram Avinu doing, Parshas Chai Sarah, is he dispatches Eliezer to find a wife for Yitzchak. That's it. That's it. No traveling, right? No spreading the word of God. Nothing. Everything stops. And Rabbi Soloveitchik comments, why is that? Because without Sarah, there wasn't an Avram. There wasn't an Avram. And by the way, that was different than other Avos and Imos, right? It wasn't the same by Yitzchak and Rivka. It wasn't the same by Yaakov, Rachel and Leah. Everyone had different. Everyone does have different marriages and different forms of partnership. But the bond of Avram and Sarah was such a profoundly intense one that literally, again, it's like again when Avram, we have to get back to the Gemara, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Avram, you're going to have a child with Sarah, right? So what does Avram Avinu say? He says, Lu Yishmael Yicheh Lefanecha, just let Yishmael live. Just like Yishmael live. Why do you have to give me? I have a kid, get Yishmael. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu explains to him, no, it's got to come from Sarah. It's kind of from Sarah. Your future is not just from you. Your future is from you and Sarah. So I say this incredible, profound, and intense marital bond. So that even in death, what does Avram Avinu do? He's locked in embrace with Sarah Imenu. It's so beautiful. So the Gemara says as follows: Eimalei bina kaya Bava. Says great. So Bina tells Eliezer, tell him that Bina is here to see him. Right? Tell the Rabbi Bina is here to see Avram. Amrlei. So Eliezer tells Avram, Amrlei, Leo, let him in. Made the yada the yetzer b'hai al maleka. Because Rabbi say Avram Avinu wasn't concerned that if Rabbi Bina were to see Avram and Sarah locked in an embrace, he wasn't afraid that Rabbi Bina would infer that there was anything, physical to that, right, or anything lustful to that. Because again, Rabbi Bina would understand that in the sphere of existence in which they were living, in Olam Haba, whatever this was, whatever you call this, Olam Haba, but still somehow present in Olam Hazeh, there's no Yetzer Hara. So that embrace of Avram and Sarah was a pure and spiritual, holy embrace. So Ayin bin Nafak. So we'll say, so what happened? So Rabbi Bina went in. Now, why is he going into Marsa Machpelah? Why is he going in? He's going in to measure the dimensions of the cave so that he could mark it above ground. Right? Remember, that's the chap over here. He's marking graves. He's marking graves so that people should know. Now remember, these are subterranean caves. So he goes in, he measures, and then he goes on top and he outlines the area. Fine. So the Gemara says, so we'll say, so now, remember, who else is buried in Marsa Machpelah? Adam and Chava. So now he wanted to come into the burial chamber of Adam and Chava and measure that as well. So what happened? Yotza Sabaskal va'amra. So a Baskal, heavenly voice, came out and said, Nistalka b'demus diyukni atzma al tistakel. You have already looked. So the Baskal came out and said to Rabbi Bina, you've already seen something made in my image. Now we're going to see that's actually a reference to Yaakov, that when he went into the burial chamber of Marsa Machpelah, he saw, remember all of the Avos, so there, he saw Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu was so beautiful. His visage, so to speak, was reminiscent of the Shekhinah. So you've already seen Yaakov. You cannot look at my own image, Kadosh Baruch Hu says. Now, that was a reference to Adam. Adam was even made in the more direct image of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Baskal comes out and says, you already saw Yaakov, you can't look upon Adam. Rabbi Bina said, how about, let's say, so Rabbi Bina said, but I need to know the dimensions of Adam's burial chamber, because I have to be able to trace that area on the outside. So to which the Gemara says, so it's the same dimensions as Avram. In other words, Rabbi says, so there's a machlokes exactly how Marsa Machpelah is structured. Is it, an exterior chamber and then an interior chamber, or is it a two-tier subterranean cave? So whatever the arrangement exactly of Marsa Machpelah is, Adam Harishon's burial area is the same as Avram and Sarah's burial area. So therefore the Baskal said to Rabbi Bina, you do not need to go in to see anything, it's the same dimensions. Rabbi Bina says, even though I didn't get to go in to see Adam, nistakalti b'shnei akevav, I saw the heels of his feet. V'domim l'shnei galgalei chama. And they looked like the balls of the sun, like two suns. So it's so pretty incredible. So apparently Adam HaRishon was like luminescent even after death. Okay, incredible Gemara. So I'll say, by the way, I'll just point out what's the connection over here? Like what exactly is the connection? So first of all, the connection is right Bana. That's the connection. Remember, the whole conversation over here started with Rav Nachman asking Rabbi Bana, what does the table of a Talmud Chacham look like? What does the bed of a Talmud Chacham look like? And then there's Rabbi Bana going into, and he speaks. Again, the fact that he's measuring graves, just to understand, like, that's not like the gripping part of the story. He's talking to Avram. Right, he's talking to Avram. He has a conversation with Avram Avinu. Right, he's going ahead and hearing from the Baskal. So I'll say. So again, the connection is as follows: when you live a life of seder, that allows you to unlock your greatness. So again, that's the progression over here. When your table looks a certain way, when your bed looks a certain way, and most importantly, when your life looks a certain way, and you are organized, and you're maximizing your time, and you have priorities, and you have goals, and you have aspirations, and you have the organized framework to be able to bring those to fruition, you become great. Then you become almost Avraham-like in your life. Just like Avram accomplished his tachlis, I can accomplish my tachlis as well, as long as there is seder. That's the progression over here. Be a Rabbi Bana in seder, and ultimately, again, you'll be like the avos in accomplishment. Incredible. Hakol b'fnei Sarah kekov b'fnei Adam. So I'll say, so now that we're talking about beauty of people, Sarah Imenu was so beautiful that compared to Sarah, everyone looked like a monkey. In other words, just like a monkey compared to a person is not, no offense to the monkeys, right? But just like a monkey compared to a human being, right, is not so good looking. So too again, anyone compared to Sarah. Sarah was so beautiful that every other person paled in comparison to her. Sarah b'fnei Chava k'kof b'fnei Adam. Sarah in front of Chava was like a monkey to a person. In other words, as beautiful as Sarah was, Chava was even more beautiful. Chava b'fnei Adam k'kof b'fnei Adam. And Chava compared to Adam. So that's what I will say. By the way, you see over here that the beauty can't be understood probably in the way that we're thinking about beauty. And ours, when it was comparing woman to woman, that's one thing. But the idea over here that the beauty of Chava is compared to Adam, right, indicates to us that this is not just simply a physical beauty. There's some other spiritual intangibility that they're talking about over here. Adam b'fnei Shechina, kekov b'fnei Adam. Right, Adam Rishon compared to the Shechina, right, compared to the beauty of the Shechina, is like a monkey compared to a person. Shufrei Rav Kahana means Shufrei Rav. Shufrei Rav means Shufrei Rabbi Yavo. So the beauty of Rav Kahana was a derivative of the beauty of Rav. The beauty of Rav was a derivative of the beauty of Rabbi Yavo. Shufrei Rabbi Yavo means Shufrei Yaakov Avinu. The beauty of Rabbi Yavo was a derivative of the beauty of Yaakov Avinu. Shufrei Yaakov Avinu mean Shufrei Adam Rishon. And the beauty of Yaakov Avinu is a derivative of the beauty of Adam Rishon. So I'll say there's a lot going on over here. We don't have time to get into all of this. But I will say, but just understand that again, this ability, this beauty is when you're able to tap in to the energy and to the essence of a tzaddik. What that does is you are able to tap into his beauty, his chen, his beauty, his goodkeit, his goodness devolves upon you as well. Ha'olam Agusha, incredible story. But again, I will say you should fold down these pages. One day we'll have to, when we have our Daf Yomi and Chabura, we'll have to come back to these. Ha'olam Agusha, this is a great story. There was a magician, a sorcerer, not Jewish sorcerer, Ha'olam Agusha, the Havachatit Shakvi. So I'll say, what would he do? He would rob corpses. What he would do is he would go ahead and he would rob corpses. As well say, so Lamaisa again, not by us, because by us we go ahead and we bury in just simple linen shrouds, right? In Tachrichim, there's nothing there. But he would know, I bet some people bury with riches or nice clothing. He would rob corpses. So we'll say, so what happened? Now, Kimata Ama'arta de Rav Tuvi Bar Masna, so then listen to this. He came and he wanted to rob the corpse of Rav Tuvi Bar Masna. Rav Tuvi Bar Masna was dead. He had died. And this guy, this Magusha, this Amagusha, came to rob the corpse. So as he opened up the coffin of Rav Tuvi Bar Masna, Tafsei bidikine, Rav Tuvi grabbed the sorcerer by the beard. All right, so we'll say, so this is like, you want to talk about like the need for therapy afterwards. Like this is it, right? So he literally, again, the kid was like, the hand of the corpse grabs the beard of the Yamagusha, right? Asa Abaye. So what happens? So apparently, I don't know, again, there's obviously some details missing from this story, but Abaye comes along. Now, how Abaye came along over there, he happened to be in the area, he heard the cries of the sorcerer, Asa Abaye, Amar Matusa Minach, Shavke. So Abaye said to Rav Tuvi Bar Masna, please let go of him. Rav Tuvi Bar Masna listened, the corpse released its grip on the beard of the sorcerer. So let's say, get ready for this. Okay, so now, obviously, next year the sorcerer comes back once again, trying to somehow, I guess he thought they were riches by the burial crypt of Rav Tuvi Bar Masna, and he tries to steal it. And what happened? Once again, he messes with the grave of Rav Tuvi Bar Masna, and Rav Tuvi Bar Masna again extends his hand, grabs onto the beard of the sorcerer. Okay, Asa Abaye lo Shavke ad Aisi Mispera the guys lidikine. So once again, Abaye was there. Again, he was there. Abaye asked Rav Tuvi Bar Masna to please let go of the sorcerer. Abaye, so Rav Tuvi Bar Masna, I don't know if he said anything, but he did not let go. That's it. First time I'll let go. Second time I'm not letting go. Abaye had to come and bring a pair of scissors and cut the sorcerer's beard off in an effort to extricate him from the grip of Rav Tuvi Bar Masna. So I will say, so again, much to say on this story, but on a very basic level, just a tremendous Mussar Haskell. We'll say, how many times in life does it happen that we make mistakes? And we fail to learn from those mistakes. And we just keep repeating the same thing over and over and over. The difference is, the first time, we're often able to extricate ourselves. But sometimes the second time, when you repeat the same mistake, you can't extricate yourself. And you're stuck. We all make mistakes in life. That is part of living, and actually sometimes a very powerful part of living. So to say I'm going to live my life and never make mistakes, that's a bracha levatal. That's not going to happen. So what's my avoda? My avoda is when I make mistakes, learn from them. And as a result of learning from them, don't repeat them. Now, I'll just make different mistakes, which is okay. That's part of living. But there's a success in not repeating the same mistake. Because often, again, repeat the same mistakes, and often the consequences the second time are much more dire and permanent than the first. Incredible. The guy, okay, he made a mistake. He robbed the wrong corpse, learned from it. But to come back again and repeat the same mistake, unforgivable. Chavisa de afra lechabroi, chavisa de garmi lechabroi, chavisa de udra lechabroi. Okay, so what's that? There was a guy. He died, or he was dying, and he wanted to bequeath his estate. So what did he say? He said, to one son, I'm giving a barrel of dirt. To one son, I'm giving a barrel of bones, and to one son, I'm giving a barrel of cotton. Okay, so we'll say, so here was the problem. The kids had no idea what their father was talking about, because there was no barrel of dirt, there was no barrel of bones, and there was no barrel of cotton. So they had no idea what he was talking about. So I was looking at Rabbi Binah. So we'll say once again, Rabbi Binah is the primary character of this primary personality of our Gemara today. So they came up for Rabbi Binah. Amar Lahu. So Rabbi Binah says, okay, let me ask you, is Luchu Ara, does your father have land? Does he have land in his possession? Amar Lahu in. So the kids said yes. So Rabbi Binah said, okay, when your father said a barrel of earth, he meant land. So whoever he gave the barrel of earth to, you get the land. Is Luchu Chiyusa? Do you have any livestock? So the Gemara says, in. The kid said yes. He says, that's the barrel of bones. The bones represent animals, livestock. Isluchu bistarki. Do you have any clothing? Do you have any clothing here? The Rashbam says over here, do you have any clothing that are made from cotton? So the Gemara says, so ultimately you're going to say yes. He said, in that case, so therefore Rabbi Binah understood that halacha l'maisa, the barrels were a representation just of different types of property. So the barrel of earth was land, the barrel of bones was livestock, and the barrel of cotton was garments. Incredible. This is an interesting story. There was a guy who overheard his wife speaking to his daughter. Right? So Hahugav, the Shamal Dvis, who heard his wife saying, so the mother was giving her daughter Musar. The daughter apparently was a married woman, and she was very immoral. So the mother said to her daughter, why aren't you more discreet in your immorality, in your marital indiscretions? The mother says, Ha chisasa, look at me for example. Asara bani isla, I have 10 sons, v'lesli me'avuch el achad, and only one of them is from your father. And yet your father has no idea. So I'll say, in life it is always important to look for the bright side in things. The good news is they have a very strong mother-daughter relationship, right? And that is something that should not be taken lightly, right? They have excellent communication, mamish togetherness. So mother and daughter in a very private bonding moment, right? Speak about the mother telling her daughter, I have 10 sons, only one of them is from your father, and he has no idea, except now he does. Says the Gemara, Kishachiv, so now the father is going to die, I would imagine probably not so long after hearing this revelation. I say he's dying. So he said, I hereby leave all of my property to one of my sons. Now, so obviously, what ended up happening over here is he recognized that only one of the kids was his. Now he did not know which one. So he says, I'm leaving all of my property ultimately again to one son. So obviously no one knew which son he left it to. So they came up for Rabbi Binah. So we'll say always Rabbi Binah. We'll say again, Rabbi Binah, when you have seder and when you have clarity and when you're organized in life, you can navigate a lot of complex situations and come up with solutions. This is incredible. Zilu chavutu kavra davuchun adekai umagli luchu lahai minayu shafka. So listen to this. Rabbi Binah said like this. Guys, sons. He gathered the sons. He said, here's what you have to do. You have to go to your father's grave and literally again hit the grave, like stamp on the grave until your father's spirit reveals itself and tells you to which of the sons he left the property. They both say, now this act of like stamping on a parent's grave is a pretty significant thing, but he said you have to summon the spirit. Azlu kulu, all the sons went. Hahu dibrei hava lo azel. All the sons went except for one. The stamp on their father's kever. Amrluhu kulhu nechase dai. Rabbi Binah said that son. Now I will say, now why did one of them stay behind? One of them stayed behind because he felt uncomfortable stamping on his father's grave. Rabbi Binah said, that's the son. See, all the other ones didn't feel any sense of, didn't feel any negativity with stamping on the grave because at the end of the day it wasn't their father. But the son, the one who was the actual son of this father, internally he felt, you know what, I'd rather give up the money. I can't do that. Rabbi Binah said, that's the son. I will say that's the son. The son is the one who has the sensitivity towards the father. So beautiful. So the Gemara says, Azlu achlu kort sabei malka. Now obviously I will say, so Rabbi Binah awarded all the property to one of the sons. The other sons were not happy. So what did they do? They went and they tattled, or they informed on Rabbi Binah to the king. Now, I'll say that's an expression we've seen this expression. Achlu kartzei malka means literally they ate like carob, with the king's house, which means that they informed. They wanted to inform on Rabbi Binah to the king. Amri, Ika Gavre Chabi Udaid, Kamafik Mamonim Inchi below Sahadi or below Midi. So they said, how do they complain about Rabbi Binah? How do they inform him? They said to the government, there is this rabbi who adjudicates monetary cases with no testimony. And they weren't wrong. In other words, Rabbi Binah went ahead and awarded the entire estate to one son based on this plan. They were saying, by the way, we have a word for that in Allah. What do we call that? We've seen that. That's called Shuda Dedaini. What was the English translation we used for that? Judicial discretion. Right? We've seen this before, that when you have a case where there is no way to adjudicate, right? There was no way, right? This is, what do they call that, 21 and me, that genealogy test? 21 and me, right? So this was the days before. So how would you go ahead and determine which is the kid? So there was no way to do that except to go ahead and divide. So that's called Shuda Dedaini. Rabbi Binah had every right to do that. Now, they informed on him that the rabbi is adjudicating cases, monetary cases, with no testimony. So they arrested Rabbi Binah and they incarcerated him. So Azla Devisu, so now listen to this. So Rabbi Binah's wife tries to come to the rescue, right? She wants to rescue her husband. So what does she do? Amr lahu, Avda, so she comes to the king, right? And she says to the king or to the government, and she says, I have the following problem. Avda chad haveli, I had one servant, Paskul Reishe, they chopped off his head, or somebody saw him, chopped off his head. Pashtul Mashichai, went ahead and skinned him, flayed him. Achlu Bisrei, ate his flesh. The Kamalu Be Maya, and made his skin into a water bottle, like into a water skin, right? Umashku Be Lechavre, used it to go ahead and give water to his friends. Velo Kayavi Li Dame, and no one ever paid me for him. Velo Agre, and never paid any kind of rental fee. So the wife Rabbi Shmuel shows up with this case. No one had any idea what she was talking about. What your slave? Somebody stole your slave, skinned your slave, chopped off his head. What are you talking about? So Amri Nesula Chachima di Yehudai Valema. So let's bring. So they saw this woman was Jewish. Let's bring one of the Jewish scholars who could understand what this lady is talking about. So we'll say, so sure enough, when they're looking for a Jewish scholar, our luck, we have one incarcerated right here. So what do? They karyu Rabbi Benah. So they call Rabbi Benah from the jail cell. Amr lahu. So I told Rabbi Benah this whole story. Now remember again, neither Rabbi Benah nor his wife let on that they were husband and wife, right? Obviously, she understood. She was a smart woman. She understood the wheels that she was putting in motion. Amr lahu zarnuka. Amr lahu. So So Rabbi Benah says Zarnuka. Rashbam says over here Nud shel or v'kach amar tayish hayali. When she says a slave, she didn't mean a person. Rather, Rabbi Benah says she meant a goat or a ram. Somebody stole an animal. Killed the animal, ate the meat, made the skin into a wine bottle, and now she's making a claim. So again, he interpreted for the government what her claim was. Amri ha v'chacham kulehai leisiv abava v'nidon dina. So it is incredible. Say, sorry, but no, you're so smart. We would like to establish you as a judge for us. What an incredible turn of events, right? So he goes from incarcerated, ultimately again to a position of prominence as a judge in the city. So they put him above, they put him by the gate of the city, because I will say again, that's historically, even for us, that's where courts, right? That's where the Beis Din was, at the gates of the city. So they put him at the gate of the city. B'ni Dondina. Chazad Avakasev, we'll say this is an incredible Gemara. Chazad Avakasev ba'avula, so he saw that they had written over the gate of the city, right? At the entrance, actually the Rashbam says, ba'avula is al daltos hashar hayakasev k'dei shirilamdu misham. So we'll say we're going to see, in this particular city, they had like certain statements written on the doors of the city that they wanted the populace to learn. So they had written on the doors of the city, here's what they had. Called Dayan demiskari ladin lo shmei Dayan. Any judge who is ever called as a party to a judicial case is not a judge. In other words, any judge who is ever accused of something and therefore brought to judgment is not a judge. In other words, in order to be a judge, you have to be beyond reproach, and if you're ever even summoned to a din Torah, you can't be a judge. So Rabbi Benah said, I hear what you're saying, but here's the problem. So we'll say, So we'll say this incredible thing. The concept of spurious lawsuits, right, and people making illegitimate claims is not a new thing. So Rabbi Benah said, let me get this straight. So you have a dayan, right? And someone comes along and accuses him of something. It just comes and accuses him. So that's it, he's no longer a dayan? In other words, so Rabbi Benah says, just because people make an accusation does not mean it's correct. I will say it's one of the hardest things, right, in today's day and age. And somebody makes an accusation about something, and what just ends up happening is the accusation itself becomes truth. Before it's vetted, right? Before there's even an opportunity for defense, before anything, and that's the power of accusations. They become truth. So Rabbi Benah says, so I understand, a dayan is doing his job, and somebody comes and makes an accusation. So because someone makes an accusation, he's no longer a dayan. Ella, rather, Rabbi Benah said, here's how you have to say it. Kol dayan demiskari ladin. Umafkin mine mamona bedin lav shmei dayan. So Rabbi Benah said, no. The way you should write it is like this. Any dayan is called to a din Torah and found guilty. and found guilty, and therefore again they extract money from him, such a person should not be a dayan. Okay, that makes sense. In other words, if you're a judge and you yourself get into legal trouble, then probably it's not a good idea for you to be a judge anymore. Okay, so therefore what do they do? The Gemara says, so therefore they added on something more to the inscription on the door, right? So in the beginning, what the inscription on the door said, right? Called dayan demiskari ladin lav shmei dayan. Any judge who is called to judgment is no longer a judge. No longer a judge. Then they added on the following lines. Baram, however, Sabi diyu dayamri, the Jewish sages say, the Jewish elders say, Kol dayin demiskiri ladinu mafkin min imamona bedin lav shmei dayin. Any judge who is called to a court case and has money extracted from him, i.e. is found guilty, is no longer considered to be a judge. So they added in this additional line, right? This is what we say, but the Jewish sages say as follows. Incredible. Chaza, we'll say, by the way, and maybe this is like a little bit even like too jaded, but it's fascinating to me. Like, why wouldn't they just rewrite the saying? Like, in other words, their saying was any judge who is summoned to judgment is no longer a judge. Is no longer a judge. So Rabbi Shmuel says, guys, that doesn't make any sense, because just because someone is summoned to judgment doesn't mean that they're guilty. Rather, it should say any judge who's summoned to judgment and found guilty should no longer be a judge. So we'll say, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So what do? They kept their line there, and then they added in our line afterwards. But our line contradicts their line, so why not rewrite the whole thing? So I'll say, I think it's important to understand that the world has never been and will never be accepting of MS when that MS comes from Jews. The world has its view. And even if we are able to put forward a view that is absolute and unequivocal truth, the world is very, very uninterested in the truth as espoused by the Jewish people. The world has its narrative, and they have their narrative about us, and they have their narrative about a lot of things. We could show from here until tomorrow, what MS is. And we'll say, how it's incredible learning this Gemara now, right? We, in this current war, we are on the side of light. We are on the side of justice. Our people were the victims of a barbaric massacre on October 7th that nothing could go ahead and justify. We are the ones waging battles, destroying tunnels that were made with misappropriated funds that came from all over the world. There are civilian casualties because our enemies choose to fight from densely populated areas. That's why our army puts itself at a disadvantage in order to minimize those casualties. Our men, women, and children are still being held hostage. But it's incredible. The world does not believe in ever seeing the truth when it's espoused by Jews. We could prove it, and this is so important because sometimes, and it sounds like a little bit sad, but sometimes you almost have to accept that there's always going to be a certain level of just, they're not interested. The world is, and I say the world, that's obviously a very sweeping statement and not an appropriate generalization, because there are so many good people in the world, Baruch Hashem, and so many people who are open to the truth. But it's important to understand that this dynamic of an unwillingness to hear truth because it's us who's saying it, it's not a new thing. It's not a new thing. That has been the dynamic of our people from the beginning of time. From the time that Avraham Avinu was trying to show the world about monotheism, and most of the world was simply uninterested, it's continued that when truth can be truth. If it comes from anyone else, people will listen. Sometimes if truth comes from Jews, for whatever the reason, the world often turns a deaf ear. Incredible. Chaza, listen to this, we'll say. So Rabbi Shmuel saw there was another statement that was written. And what did he see? Chaza, dichsid berosh kol masa anadam. Literally again, at the head of every illness is blood. I was about to say that they believed that all illnesses came, Rashbam points out, from an excess of blood. This whole chap of excess of blood, this is why bloodletting was a very big thing, right? The thought was that if you could get some blood out of the system, it'll heal illness. So they had this statement written that at the head of every, literally, barosh kol mosa, really what it means is, at the head of every death. In other words, the major cause of death is because of too much blood, right? Kol chayin anachamar. At the head of every elixir for life is wine. That may be true, right? So remember again, we've seen this before. Remember again, our Gemara in Gittin, right? If almost like the cure to every single malady. Remember again, fatty meat and wine, right? Fatty meat and undiluted wine, or right, less diluted wine. So again, this was reflective of their understanding of medicine. Understand, if somebody falls off a tree and dies, so that was a blood disorder that killed them. So how can you say that blood is at the head of every single death? The Gemara says, "Soon min dedarki lememis mashkulu chamra v'chayi." Furthermore, again, if somebody's dying and you give them wine, suddenly they're healed. So the statement seemed to be inaccurate. Rather, elahachi bari lemichtav. This is what you have to write. Barosh kol marin on Adam. At the head of every illness, not at the head of every death. At the head of every illness is blood. That often, again, this was their what they held to be truth. That ultimately, again, at the root of every illness, at the head of every illness, is some kind of blood disorder. Barosh kol asvan, at the head of every remedy. Every good remedy has anachamar, has wine with it. Every good remedy has, so he amended it. Not that blood causes most deaths, and not that wine is for every single, remedies everything, but rather, again, at the head of most illness is going to be some type of blood disorder, and at the head of almost all remedies is wine. So let's listen to this. So sure enough, they amended the statement. So what did the statement say? So they, like you said, they kept their original statement, right? So their original statement read, Barosh kol masa anadam, at the head of every death is blood, right? And Barosh kol chayin anachamar, at the head of every life or remedy is wine. So then they appended it, and they kept their statement, and they said, Baram Sabi di Yehudai Amri Barosh Kol Marin Anadam. The elders of the Jews, the wise ones of the Jews, say that at the head of every illness is blood, and at the head of every remedy, ultimately again is wine. So it means, once again, they did not go ahead and rewrite their statement. They kept their statement. They just put a Jewish footnote in there. Ba'asr deles chamar taman mitbu'u samanim. And a place, by the way, where there's no wine, what do? You have herbs. You have herbs. So the Gemara says, Kasav apischa de kapotkia, anpok anbog antal. So we'll say, now that we're talking about what was written kind of at the gates of the cities, so at the gates of the city of Kapotkia, they wrote the following. They wrote these three words, anpok anbog antal. So we'll say these are measurements. So it could be, by the way, that Kapotkia was also like a major center of commerce, so that when you walked into the city, they had the names of the measurements. And what they were telling you was the measurements of Anpok, Anbog, and Antal are all the same thing. Which makes sense, because if it was like a commerce center, you had people coming from all over the place, people often called measures by different names. So when you went into the city, by the way, Chevra, all these are the same measure. Ve'ezu Antal, what is an Antal? Zehu Revius Shal Torah. I will say this is what we call a Revius. What we call a Revius. Oh, incredible. All right, says the Mishnah. We'll say back to Chazaka. Hamar Zev, Ein Lo Chazaka, Ve'eshim Koma Chazaka. So we'll say, so Hamar Zev is a downspout. So we'll say, so remember again, a gutter is comprised of, or I should say a gutter system has two parts. You have the gutter. Now when we talk about the gutter, so the gutter is the part that goes along the roof line, right? And then of course, from the gutter, right, how does water get from the gutter wherever you want it, right? So you have a downspout. That's a marzev. That's a marzev. So that's the channel or the pipe that takes the water again from the gutter out. So marzev Eilo chazaka. So the presence of a marzev does not establish chazaka. V'yesh l'mekomo chazaka. But ultimately, again, its space does have a chazaka. Now, so let's analyze what we know. What that's saying is like this. If I have a downspout in Ruvain's property for 3 years, I can't claim ownership over the property because I had a downspout, right? That's not demonstrative of ownership. But however, again, I can establish a chazaka on the space that the downspout occupies. Now, what exactly that means, we'll have to see in the Gemara. Okay, fine. Hamas chila, yesh chazaka. A gutter, on the other hand, does have a chazaka. Now, let me just give you a little bit coming attractions. The reason why a downspout doesn't establish chazaka is a downspout, at least, again, the way their homes were constructed, was not a permanent fixture. The gutter was permanent. The downspout was not permanent. So because of that, presence of a gutter establishes chazaka. Presence of a downspout does not establish chazaka. Sulam ha-mitzri, and again we'll see all this in the Gemara. Sulam ha-mitzri, an Egyptian ladder, which I will say for our purposes, the Rashban says is almost like a step ladder. A small little portable ladder. So that doesn't establish chazaka because since it's small and portable, therefore again, person is not makbid on it. But ultimately again, a Tsurian ladder, so that was much bigger. That was often much more established and fixed in place. That does establish chazaka. So we'll say, so now, this is actually interesting. So we'll say, so now windows. So remember again, we had this before about the concept of hezek re'iyah, that in general again, you're not allowed to look into someone else's property, because again, that diminishes their ability to use it. So there's a concept of the Gemara's not talking about over here about the ability to establish chazaka for the right to look into someone's property. So let's say again, I construct a window in my property, a chalon ha-mitzris, in the chazaka. So we'll say, so the fact that chalon ha-mitzris, now the Rashban points out over here, what's a chalon ha-mitzris? It's a small window. So the presence of a small window, and we'll stop over here for today. I don't want to rush. We'll pick up in the middle, so we're standing in the middle of the Mishnah. What a day. Shkayach, everyone. All right, Chavran Zoom, have a great day, everyone.